The PlayAction Podcast is fueled by Picasso's Pizza, where every night is pizza night.
We are almost to the end of spring practice in the NFL, also known as organized team activities and minicamp. Katherine, let's talk a little bit. We've been to OTAs for 3 weeks now. Let's talk a little bit about something we learned. We've been talking to these people after practices. Let's share with the fans a little something we've learned lately from our interviews.
Yeah, it's good to get kind of back in that swing of things of talking to guys after practice just to pick their minds on everything. I thought it was also really interesting before practice last week to hear from Bobby Babich. His kind of approach as he takes on this new role of defensive coordinator, just the vulnerability he's going into it with, of admitting that he still doesn't know everything, that he said he'd be a fool not to use Sean McDermott for help along the way, just in making that transition. So I thought that was a really good approach and refreshing to hear.
Yeah, he definitely, it's just very obvious. He has a presence about him, right?
Yes.
He projects a presence, a commanding presence. You can see how he could stand in front of the room, the defensive room, and command the room, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that other teams noticed, which is why he got feelers in the offseason right after the end of last season from the Giants and the Dolphins and I think Washington. But he talked about that and said that he belongs here. Anything else on Babich? What do you think?
Yeah, I think just kind of, they still haven't decided who's going to call the defense, but I liked, again, kind of his approach of I'm going to be learning every single day while I'm out there. And his journey is kind of cool of how he's moved around the defense, and I think that's given him a good vision when it comes to coaching guys of knowing how to work with so many different players, and especially coming off working with linebackers. He talked about his relationship with Terrell Bernard and how important that is, and that'll be critical moving forward too. So I think really good at just building that rapport with players has made him such an effective coach.
Yeah, a guy I talked to who I think is a little under the radar is cornerback Christian Benford. Obviously, Kaiir Elam, being a former first-round draft pick, gets a little more attention. I talked to Benford after practice last week. He is a very level-headed guy. He does not let this fame and attention. He has blinders on.
Yeah.
I talked to him about the fact that he was the number one tackler among all cornerbacks last season, just from now. Obviously, he didn't play quite as much, but he only missed one tackle all season. Okay, and so he had the best tackle rate according to Pro Football Focus. I said, did he realize that? He had no idea of that, and he said, I don't care. I hate stats. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to look at it. And and then I kind of tried to draw him out a little bit about he had a big, if you recall, the regular season finale in Miami. He had a big interception early, and it was a really impressive play. Miami pulls Tyreek Hill in motion, comes up the slot. Benford has deep third. They're in cover 3. He's got deep third, so he's got to just flat out turn and run with the fastest, best receiver in the NFL. Now the throw was maybe a little underthrown from Tua, but Benford, made the play, stayed with him enough and made the interception. And even that, I say, does that give you confidence going? He says, no, I don't really take confidence from, if it was me, I would say, I got an interception off Tyreek Hill, you know what I mean? That would be I'd be keeping that ball. And but no, he said, I don't judge. I don't so I like the perspective he had of he doesn't rise and fall,
right,
live and die with the results. He said, I'm not results oriented per se as far as my confidence goes. I got confidence every day just from knowing that I'm running, doing my practice routine, taking every play seriously. So I thought it was a really great, mature approach from a guy who, again, is kind of defined by the 6th-round draft choice. I also watched some of the Tampa game which was a good. He had toe-to-toe with Mike Evans, one of the best, veteran receivers, and he played a really great game. He gave up a touchdown late, if you recall. Like the Bills were winning 24-10. Tampa gets a touchdown with 2 minutes to go, and he had to cover Evans all the way across the field on a deep over and kind of trail technique, and he was right with him, and the ball bounces off Benford's helmet and into Mike Evans' arm.
Right.
So they got a sort of he had to cover him about as good as you can. Again, he's not into reveling in his past success.
We'll repeat this over and over even today, but there's only so much you can take away from some of these practices when they're in shorts and T-shirts. But I think there are things you can take away at the same time. There's that balance. And let's talk about people who we think might exceed expectations going into this season. We get a taste of what guys are up to. There's some positions that it's easier to judge right now. But Mark, is there anyone that you've been keeping an eye on in particular?
Yeah, I will go with Ray Davis. Now, you can't tell too much. The run game doesn't get practiced, but they do have some running plays. I just like his running style. He's big for his size, so he's diminutive 5'8", but he's 211.
Yeah.
So he's got heft to him. He's not thin. I like his running style. He is a no-nonsense. The knock on him is he doesn't have long speed. He's not a breakaway home run hitter, but they have that in James Cook.
Yes.
So they don't need that in him. And I thought he has looked good. He's a smooth catch. He came out out of Kentucky with a reputation of having good hands out of the backfield. I think he's a smooth catcher of the ball, and I think he is going to. Early heads up to fantasy people. Later round picks at running back for fantasy. Ray Davis. I think that he's got the opportunity there to really exceed. When you look at last year, the backups and what they did, Latavius Murray, 300 yards, 3.8 a carry, okay. Leonard Fournette, 3.3 a carry on 12 carries. Damian Harris, unfortunately, his career ended. He got hurt with a neck injury. But I think Ray Davis is what they were hoping they would get out of Damian Harris.
Okay.
Who I think Damian is maybe 215, 212, 213. Ray Davis is 211. Damian Harris averaged 4.1 a carry on 23 carries. I see Ray Davis getting 100 carries. Mm-hmm. I could see him 4.4 a carry. I think he is going to be an upgrade. Good vision, got some yards after contact ability, smooth catcher of the ball. I think he is going to be an upgrade at the change of pace running back behind James Cook.
All right. It's a good take. Early fantasy lead for, what is it, June 10th?
Yeah.
I'll give you two players I've been keeping an eye on. One from I've seen stuff on the field, one from an interview standpoint. Damar Hamlin's had some nice plays, and I think, expectations are a little muddled for him.
Low?
They're low, yeah. And I think at this point, he's had some of the more exciting plays of OTAs. And again, only so much we can take away from it, but it's cool to see him make a big play and his teammates still rally around him. That interception from, was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
2 weeks ago. Yeah, they're running together a bit for me. But then had another big play this past week. So
Almost had the interception, tips the ball with both hands.
Yeah.
Read it, tipped it, and then Deion Jones caught the interception.
Yes.
Yeah.
So big play for the defense still, but his involvement, I think, has been fun to see. And then I really enjoyed talking to Casey Tuill. I'm working on when we do our position preview later in the season, or the summer, writing about him, but his preparation standpoint I found just really interesting. And we heard the same thing from Marcus West, the defensive line coach, about just kind of his approach, how it's very detail oriented. He's never to what you were saying with Christian Benford, he's never happy with his results. It's more about the process of it. So I think getting to know someone who's new to the team and just kind of the way he's learning the defense was really interesting too.
Yeah, Hamlin projected to be the number 4 safety behind Edwards, Rapp, and Bishop, who are the top 3 in some way, shape, or form. But maybe he can push himself a little higher on that list, and he certainly looks like he's playing with confidence. The NFL is close to coming up to its summer vacation break, where the whole league pretty much goes dark before the start of training camp in late July. Katherine, let's talk a little bit about, as we're taping this before the final minicamp practices, but what fans can take from minicamp and what can they look for at the minicamp and the start of training camp here.
Yeah, so this will be their mandatory mini camp coming up, scheduled for 3 days. They usually end up getting the third day off, which is normal around the league, to be clear. I've covered other teams that have done the same thing of, you work hard, you get to start your summer a little earlier. But I think, we get a chance to go watch these practices longer than we get to during the season for sure, but closer to like a training camp kind of cadence of, going out and watching some football.
Yeah. I mean, I think Bobby Babich said it, you referenced him before last week, that it's a passing camp, more or less. They're not they're not allowed to have contact. It is next to impossible. You can't have really practice your running game fits if you're not going close to full speed. So it is it is an assignment sound. They can be practice the being assignment sound, but it is more or less a shorts and t-shirts and helmets passing game camp. So even pass rush is a little harder it's hard to make definitive judgments on, but who's catching the ball, who's getting separation, who has some burst or juice, who is on their hip in tight coverage. Those are things you can watch for. And really, when fans get to training camp, it's very similar. The first week of training camp is shorts and t-shirts practices. Yeah. It's a passing game. Training camp starts off a passing game practice. So, those are things we can look for. And, all eyes like Keon Coleman, all eyes are on him. And they will be at summer and training camp. And I think Keon has looked like a smooth catcher of the ball. Good hands. He plucks it easily and effortlessly. Those are some limited judgments you can make.
Yes, but you get a taste for that chemistry that Josh Allen is starting to build with guys at the receiver position in particular. And I think that's always interesting to see of just, who is he on the same page with? It's June. There's time for them to tweak things and get more in rhythm if they need to, but it's an early taste of some of those things.
And you have to also keep in mind, again, that this is spring practice, so drawing, everybody I meet says, okay, who looks good?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what you want to know. Same with training camp, but so you want to give an answer, but you also you always have to temper it and qualify it by saying, it's spring practice. So, Rob Johnson was one of the best Bills quarterbacks in practice. Yeah. Trent Edwards was really smooth and good and got the ball out of his hands in practice. He was better in practice than he was in games. So anyway, I think last week there was a funny moment where Deion Dawkins wasn't there. It's voluntary. He was somewhere else for that day. Spencer Brown, who's doing a ton coming back from shoulder surgery, in individual and an O-line individual work, but isn't actually in 11-on-11. They're still holding them out from that. So they had at one point the international player who has never played football lining up at right tackle across from Von Miller. And Von, got around him pretty cleanly. So that was, I don't know if that was a welcome to the NFL, welcome to football moment for Travis
welcome
Clayton.
To football. Yeah, it is interesting just to see kind of who they're putting out there at this point of the year. It's also a last chance for us to kind of interview guys and stuff our notebook for the summer. So I always look forward to that, of just getting to pick guys' brains of, how is this going? What are you working on? What's the rest of your summer training look like? So it is very productive, even though, like you said, there's always tempering expectations from the football standpoint.
Right. And this week we are gathering as many stories as we can, because we will have Bills coverage every day. Between when they go dark, we are not. The lights never go out at the Buffalo News.
Exactly.
Knock on wood. And so we will have stories every day up until the start of training camp.
Yeah, so you can make sure you're following all those at buffalonews.com, but then we'll still be podcasting throughout the summer some, so make sure you're subscribing wherever you get your podcasts too.
Treat your team to the most flavorful pizza on game day at Picasso's Pizza. 4 great Western New York locations: Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Picasso's. We are Buffalo's Pizza since 1980. Order online today at picassospizza.net.